Hello and welcome to my workshop. My name is Rob. I'm here today representing the Mandalorian Mercs Costume Club. The Mandalorian Mercs Costume Club is an international Star Wars costume organization dedicated to sharing love of Star Wars through custom-built creation displays and representing the Mandalorian culture for people of all ages. We are technically a nonprofit organization that has a Lucasfilm limited affiliation where we are able to represent Lucasfilm and Star Wars at certain events. A lot of those events that you might know are things such as the Aurora Mini Convention that we're doing here virtually today. We also represent Lucasfilm typically at movie premieres. Certain events, some of our own members were actually on the red carpet, the virtual red carpet, this last week for the Mandalorian Season 2 premiere. You might also find us at other events such as charity events, whether those be charity walks, things against breast cancer, also Make-A-Wish. That's a real common place that you might find us. We do children's hospital visits, trying to share our love of Star Wars. We come to you today for Aurora Mini Convention to do a Cosplay 101 with the Mandalorian Mercs. This obviously is going to be more focused on building a Mandalorian costume than just general cosplay, but we wanted to make sure that we had a chance to walk through all of the Mandalorian costumes in their entirety. Talk about each one of the constituent parts, not just the helmets, but all the little detail parts that can bring a costume to life. We're also here today to dispel some common myths about cosplay in general, or costuming. You don't really have to be a specific size, shape, age, or gender, even to be a member of the Mandalorian Mercs. The main requirement that we have is that you build a costume that fits within our costume requirement lists, the CRLs. We, as an organization, do not discriminate against sex, race, color, religion, body shape, or anything in between. Anybody can be a member so long as they're willing to build a costume that meets that convention, the CRLs. We here, even locally, have a variety of shapes and sizes of people. You should hopefully see them here popping up on the screen, but we have such a large variety of people that represent different minorities, different ethnic groups, LGBTQ, anything in between. We welcome you to come try to join us. My name is Rob Even. I serve the Sarar clan here representing the MMCC as the Rousselor Solish. That is first Rousselor or lead costumes expert for the state. I have been an official member since November of 2017.
I am Sam Waibenga. I am the Alared, which is the president, captain of the Sarar clan here in the state of Colorado and Wyoming. I have been an official member since July of 2019.
I am Elizabeth Cheshire Waibenga, and I am also a Rousselor. I work with Rob with the Metro Denver, Colorado costuming unofficial members. I also go to other areas in the state as well as Wyoming to help people get their costumes passed by the Costume Regulatory Committee. And we use that using the following CRLs, costuming, what are those?
Costume requirement list.
Thank you! See, Rob knows the details. That's it.
Have you been
Official?
Oh, I've been official since May 2019.
There's also a common myth that exists that you need a whole lot of specialty equipment to start into cosplay, and especially the Mandalorian Mercs. That's absolutely not true. If you have the willpower and are willing to spend a lot of time working with the individuals, you can get away with just a few simple tools. These are the basic 4 tools that I would say any Mandalorian costume could absolutely use. And it starts from the base of almost any good tool. This is a Dremel tool, or a rotary tool. You can find these at almost any big box hardware store. Target even sells them. You can find them online, and there's also other brands. But the important part is that it comes with a bunch of attachments that allow you to trim, shape, and adjust the various metals, plastics, or other materials that you end up using. I have a drill here because that typically makes a lot of things easier for putting screws together, putting holes in things, and things of that sort. The ubiquitous sandpaper. Of course, sandpaper is going to be your good friend. Changing shape, and it's going to be a little less aggressive than the sanding drum of any Dremel. The other big piece are heat guns. You don't necessarily need to own one, but if you're planning on making your own costume out of plastic, this is exactly what we prefer to use. This will allow you to heat shape and adjust everything from your plastic plates, whether those be Sintra, ABS, or somewhere in between. And then the very last thing out of everything, good old spray paint. Spray paint, as long as you stick to the same brand across your kit, you'll have great results. As you see here, I just have a metallic one that is kind of the basis for all of my costumes. So, wanted to take an opportunity to kind of cover a lot of the aspects of what we do with the Mandalorian Mercs. Obviously, we build Mandalorian costumes. The elements of that, at least, are broken down into kind of two big segments. You've got your soft parts, which are all of the fabric or leather goods that we have. They make up the underlayers, a lot of the garments. And then the hard parts, which are things like helmets here and things like the armor themselves. Each one of these can be either made or purchased online. Things tend to be a little cheaper when you build them yourself, whereas if you purchase items that are pre-made, they tend to be a little bit higher since we're supporting members of our making community. So the breakdown of soft parts starts for us with the flight suit. So it has the underneath part, so you can see here we've got technically two sleeves. We've got an upper sleeve and a lower sleeve, and that matches down to the pants of Sam's flight suit here. A lot of people can do it in two parts. Sam's is actually a shirt and a set of pants. My personal one is actually just a red cap painter's jumpsuit. Elizabeth also has a flight suit for her costume that is made of lycra and spandex materials, so it's a little more form-fitting.
Yep.
As long as it fits you, as if it was tailored or more form-fitting, that is approvable for the Mandalorian Mercs. Another optional part of any Mandalorian costume is actually a neck seal. As we can see with Sam here, it is technically a ribbed piece of fabric. This is a great one that Elizabeth has made. Lots of ribs going on. It helps hide what we call neck meat, but any part of you that might show out from underneath your helmet. My personal one is actually built into the flak vest, and it's made of the same material. So that's another one of the optional parts. It obviously not required, but it definitely adds to the cohesiveness of any costume. The next portion of any good Mandalorian kits are boots and gloves. As you can see here, Sam has gloves that are color coordinated for his costume. And boots are any good boot. This is just a classic Stanley brand Chelsea boot. The big thing is as long as it is a full boot, not a tennis shoe or something, those are good. My personal gloves here, these are just Nomex gloves, and Sam's are work gloves. So those are part of it. You can also use fingerless gloves or anything of that variety. Those are all approvable.
Sam also, his boots are military boots, and because they have laces, you have to make sure that you have some sort of armor plating to cover the laces.
Right. Laces are indeed not necessarily a Star Wars thing, so we have that boot armor that goes right here on Sam's boots. Let me tilt it down so we can see that a little bit better. There's Sam's boot. So you can see the laces on it. These are re-dyed military boots, and then the boot plate goes right over that. Other ways of hiding laces are things such as spats, or even like this one. This is a very good spat or a full leg gaiter. Half chaps work as well. When talking about belts, here's another belt rig of my own. As I said, you can have pouches, you can have holsters for blasters, and with a lot of the additional accessories, I have some high tension wire, some trophies. Some of my favorite are actually here. These are chest diamonds from my fellow comrades here within the Mandalorian Mercs Soror clan, and they represent that I've trooped and done an event with that individual. But so you can have a lot of fun with trophies or little add-ons that add some personality to your kit. As we cover some more of the optional parts of a Mandalorian costume, I wanted to cover the kama. This was popularized with the clones from Attack of the Clones, the ARC Troopers in particular, but basically it's a lot like a half skirt It allows for some protection around the hips and buttocks of any individual. Elizabeth has hers here as well. Hers is, again, weathered accordingly with her kit, and then has a nice edge banding to give a pop of color. The other optional part that any kit might have is a cape. Boba Fett has a cape. The Mandalorian Din Djarin has a cape. A lot of people have capes. My personal cape is a fur cape that is weathered and attached to my flak vest and sits there accordingly over my left shoulder. The next big thing that we talk about, we have loincloths. We really like having the groin region of any Mandalorian covered. For a soft part version, we have loincloths. So here's Elizabeth, and she has little armor plates on hers. Sam actually has a hard plate. We'll cover that more in the hard parts section, but I just wanted to make sure that we covered, hey, you got to have that area covered. The only variation that we do allow lack of coverage there now are either the canon builds, so a specific Mandalorian, or the post-Imperial, which is the new The Mandalorian TV show era. Other items such as rank ropes are Wookiee braids or Padawan braids, things that are trophies from a hunt or something that just adds a little depth to your kit. I have 3 here on my kit. They might be a little hard to make out, but those are some optional pieces that you can add to any kit.
Also on Sam's rank rope here, he has included a claw and a little bit of extra string, so as he adds trophies, he can have them on the one rank rope.
Some other optional accessories for Mandalorians are things like rank ropes. Sam here, since he is the captain for the Colorado Sarar clan, Colorado and Wyoming, he gets a red rank rope for his rank as captain. But other things, since Sam is also a military veteran, we have a brown rank rope. So there's a lot of affiliation going on with coloration and rank ropes. But we have a blue one here for me for being the costumes expert. But things like a pauldron. This is actually a Sand Trooper pauldron that I have modified for my own costume. You can have quite a bit of leeway in terms of added items, as long as it fits within the Star Wars universe. For any good Mandalorian build, the first hard part that people think about is a helmet. These come in a variety of shapes and sizes, and you can build them, you can purchase them. They obviously are very distinctive with the cheeks and the T-visor. Some of the ones that we have here, we have actually a resin and fiberglass casted. This is made from a maker here in Colorado, but they can be purchased all across the world. This one is actually a 3D print. With 3D prints, it's important that we actually finish them and make it look like it's not a 3D print. You can see that there's no print lines or any artifacts that showed up from that. One of the last options that some people look to is actually scratch building. This is a scratch-built helmet that I've made. It is made from a thermoplastic called Sintra and a hard hat. And then I glued it all together and sanded it and made it custom. But any one of these options is perfectly acceptable for the Mandalorian Mercs. One of the other options that a lot of people go with is actually a production-level costuming part. This is the Django 2-piece helmet made by Rubies. Rubies actually tends to make a lot of helmets. These take a little bit more work to get approvable, but they are a budget-friendly option for those wanting to build a Mandalorian costume. This is actually made in 2 parts out of a plastic, and the way to get it approvable is to kind of remove all those seams, make it look a little bit less like a toy, and a lot more like a costume part. Parts of the Mandalorian costume that are required were the knees, and those can come in a variety of forms. Elizabeth's knees are smaller, more fit for her shape and size. Sam's knees, as we mentioned earlier, are vacuum formed, but they are better fit to him. But you can also have a little bit more variety in it as well. This is what we call a schnee, and it goes from the shin to the knee. So we kind of hybridize that as long as it has a distinct plate over the knee. The next part that a lot of people think about when they're doing the hard parts of any Mandalorian costume are actually your gauntlets. Those come in a variety of forms as well. Sam here is holding a vacuum-formed one made of an ABS plastic. Elizabeth is holding one that is 3D printed. You might recognize this one as a variation on the one from The Mandalorian. Sam's is actually an example of a Boba Fett one. The other option a lot of people can go with is a scratch build. This is made from PVC pipe and a piano hinge with a lot of integrated little greeblies. Things that you find anywhere from Nerf guns to pen caps to PVC pipes and even just little hoses. Then obviously the most iconic part of any Mandalorian costume is the rest of the plates. We can make these from a variety of plastics, metals, vacuum formed, 3D print. Sam is holding up his back plate. This is made from ABS plastic that was then thermoformed to his body and shaped.
It took a lot of time, a lot of effort, but it can be done.
It can be done indeed. We've got such things as a 3D print. This is obviously a chest plate from Din Djarin, the early episodes before he had to get a brand new shiny set. This is 3D printed. We can either use PLA or PETG for durability. Other options, sheet metal. We've got 16 gauge steel here that was bent and shaped accordingly. Aluminum is perfectly acceptable. As I mentioned already, Sam's plates are ABS plastic, but if you look at the lower parts of his body, ABS plastic can then be used in a vacuum formed. So you can get vacuum formed chest plates, leg plates, any of the plates that you're looking for can be vacuum formed and purchased from any vendor. The last material that I haven't really mentioned yet is actually Sintra. Sintra is an expanded PVC foam board, and that's what is used here on this set of armor. I tend to like it in this thicker size that is about 1/4 of an inch thick. So Sam here is wearing the full set of modern Mandalorian costume. That is going to include the collar plate, chest plates, 2 of them, chest diamond, ab plate, 2 shoulder plates here, the shoulder bells is what we call them, and knees. Everything else is kind of extra or partially required. We did talk earlier about the cod plate actually being required. Any sort of loin, groin coverage is what's required. Sam chose to go with a cod plate. One other big part of the Mandalorian costume is actually having a back covering. Sometimes you can end up using a cape or something like that to cover over your back, much like Din Djarin. But we also have a variety of back plates around. Elizabeth's here. This is called the Legacy style, so it's very lamellar and overlapping. This is a very easy style to form for yourself. Sam's is a single sheet of plastic that we shaped ad nauseum to his body. As I mentioned earlier, some plates you can find vacuum formed. Back plates are one of the ones for that. Other optional accessories for your backs, some of you might be wondering, are indeed, yes, jetpacks. We obviously love these. These are not required. If you would like to add one, you may do so. Backpacks and other things of the variety are also welcome, as long as they look like they belong as part of the Star Wars costume. One thing that you see here between Sam and Elizabeth is a variety of styles. One thing that a lot of people think when they come into Mandalorian Mercs is that they have to build this style of armor. Absolutely not. Elizabeth here designed and built her own templates within the sandbox of the requirements that we have. You can have a unified chest plate. You can have lamellar chest plates. And especially with the new series, we have a lot of references to other styles of chest plates for the post-Imperial era that we're calling that. If you look back into the comics, there's a whole lot of other references as well in the expanded universe for the Mandalorians, whether that be the Crusader era or everyone's favorite Neo-Crusaders from Knights of the Old Republic. So we have a large variety of things that people can build and style to their own shape and liking. And as the saying goes, weapons are part of our religion. For the Mandalorian Mercs approval, you must have at least one weapon. At least. A lot of good ones are things like this. This is a Hasbro E11 that was painted and modified to not look like a toy. You're also allowed to have melee weapons. We have a variety of knives here. These are made from the similar plastics, ABS and Sintra. As long as it is not metal and has a sharp edge, we typically allow those. Sam has a 3D printed blaster that he uses. That is a rather large handgun, but you can get absolutely ridiculous. Things such as this is a rocket launcher that I use for one of my kits as well. This is made from PVC and Sintra piping.
Show them
The other option that you can do is a kind of a scratch build as well. This is another large handgun, but this is made from a toy pistol that I found online. Bunch of PVC, and then as always, greeblies that kind of give it a little bit of depth and detail. As we mentioned with Our weapons are our religion. The only major exception for our custom Mandalorians is lightsabers. There are only a small handful of lightsabers allowed for Mandalorians. I say small handful. There's one. The Darksaber. Some of you might have seen it on the season finale of season 1 for the Mandalorian. That's the Darksaber. So only characters that currently or have in the films carried that as a canon character can carry those. The other exception that we have is you can carry a lightsaber as a trophy if it has been deactivated and then damaged. But we just don't carry lightsabers. That's kind of part of our mythos. Mostly because the Jedi and the Mandalorians have been enemies for quite some time. A real common misconception with Mandalorian Mercs is that you need a whole lot of money to build a costume. Sam and Elizabeth here are great examples of being able to build your costume from scratch. I mentioned earlier, Sam's vest is made from a thrift store leather jacket. Elizabeth sewed her own flak vest. And both of these two were able to make all of their armor from a single sheet of ABS purchased here locally. You don't really have to invest a whole lot of money. You can choose to do so. Again, certain products are made by very reputable makers, and you are paying for that kind of service. Things like helmets and gauntlets tend to be more commonly purchased items rather than made. But things such as chest plates and diamonds and other items like that, those can be made just as well as they can be purchased.
And if you have access to a 3D printer, it can be even less expensive.
You're absolutely right. Helmets and chest plates and gauntlets are very easily 3D printable. There are free files available not only on Thingiverse, but on the Mandalorian Mercs website. We have several versions of helmets, several versions of gauntlets, and a wide variety of weapons and tools that if you have access to a 3D printer, you can find one. I want to also take some time to dispel some common myths that come with cosplaying, that you have to be a certain shape, size, age, color, gender, or anything in between. The Mandalorian Mercs, as a club, do not discriminate against anybody. You can be male, female, heterosexual, homosexual, and anywhere in between. We want more than anything to have you live your favorite spaceman memory. We want you as a part of the Star Wars community. We allow customization, and we allow for you to express yourself exactly how you want. That even comes down to color choice. The only thing that the Mandalorian Mercs currently does not approve for colors is glitter. And that's just because it's really, really messy. So you can have a fully pink kit. You obviously have reds and blues, whites, anywhere in between. We have allows for all of those. One other misconception comes down to materials. We've talked a lot about that throughout the course of this discussion, and some reputations are not necessarily founded. PLA, for example, common 3D print material. People are always tending to be afraid that it'll melt or misshape. We can find plenty of uses for things like PLA within a costume. This is a part that I printed off recently. Sintra. It's an expanded PVC foam board. Some people believe it is very brittle. It's brittle in comparison to other things. It also does not react necessarily negatively at altitude. However, you can't treat it the same way as other materials. If you're heat shaping it, you have to be more gentle. You probably can heat shape it actually through boiling it in water, and that allows you to create such complex shapes. ABS. Most commonly material used for vacuum formed, but Elizabeth and Sam here are perfect examples of you can just buy a sheet, cut out a template, and go to town. We'd like to thank you for joining us for the Aurora Mini Convention today. If you have any questions or would like to find out more about the Mandalorian Mercs Costume Club, you may find us online at themandalorianmercs.org or at facebook.com/mandalorianmercs or at instagram.com/mandalorianmercs. If the local scene is more your speed, feel free to follow the Soror clan both on Facebook and Instagram. If you're particularly interested in joining and becoming an official member of the Mandalorian Mercs, we highly recommend that you check out the forums, hosted at mandalorianmercs.org/forum. We also encourage you to join up here locally with the Soror Clan Build an Information Group, which is the group you see here listed with the giant number. Also, check out the Mandalorian Mercs Builders Group. Both of those are on Facebook. The forum is filled with information, tutorials, and anything that you possibly would ever want to know about building a Mandalorian costume. The Facebook groups are more focused on giving instant interaction with those local to you as well as those worldwide who are in the same boat and also wish to build a Mandalorian Mercs official Mandalorian costume. I look forward to hearing from you. This is the way.